Welcome to Volume 2 of the Degenerate Gambling Life. My name is Kevin Miller. I'm here with my partners Jacob and Joshua. On today's episode, we will be covering our top 5 running backs in 3 different formats. I'll be covering Best Ball, Joshua will be covering Redraft, and Jacob will be covering Dynasty. It will be interesting to see if the running backs are ranked the same in different formats or how it changes based on what type of draft you're partaking in. We will also be discussing when to start looking at a tight end in your draft and who in particular we are targeting. My number 1 running back in Best Ball is going to be Christian McCaffrey, especially being a PPR format on DraftKings, and I know Underdog is half-point PPR. I think that his floor is too high, as well as having an insane ceiling because of the passing and the running game. And the offense, he plays on one of the best offense in the league and has an elite defense that should put them in good scoring position frequently. My number 2 running back at Best Ball is Bijan Robinson, and that might surprise some of you, but a rookie running back of his caliber usually finishes 1 or 2 at the position as of recent history, Saquon Barkley being the most recent example. And I think on that offense, with all the running and passing that they want to do, with him being the centerpiece of the offense, I think the sky's the limit for him. Even if Tyler Algier has 200 carries like he did last year, I think Bijan Robinson could still have 250 to 300 carries and 50 to 75 catches and finish in the top 5 running backs. And you really want to take running backs in Best Ball that can rush and receive, or running backs that can have a high chance of getting a 100-yard game for a bonus. So I think Bijan Robinson's a great number 2 for Best Ball. My number 3 is going to be Austin Eckler. I do think he takes a ding. He's not happy with where he's playing. I think they might be a little more pass heavy to the receivers than they have been. And 100 catches as a running back is really hard to repeat. So as he was number 1 or 2 running back depending on the format last year. I think they do have a different coordinator on offense now, and that could limit his ceiling a little bit. So I do downgrade him to number 3 overall this year. Still pretty high spot on the totem pole, but keep an eye on Eckler. At my number 4 running back position in Best Ball, I have Derrick Henry. I think on the DraftKings format, 100-yard bonus, 3 points. He has almost half his games are 100 yards, even looking at the end of last year. 100 yards almost every single week on the ground. It's a lot of points. Lock in the touchdowns, lock in the bonuses. Derrick Henry is good as gold in fantasy. The cliff is coming, and it could be this year, but he's as good of a bet as any running back. There's really no question marks other than his age and the wear and tear. And finally, at number 5, I have Dallas Cowboys running back Tony Pollard. He's looking like he's in for a big workload. They have him playing on the franchise tag this year, which is more than most running backs are making, 10 million plus. And without Ezekiel Elliott there to take all those touchdowns and middle of the field rushes away, Pollard's ceiling is very high, although his floor is fairly low. He is the boomer bust running back of this group. He could win you your bet, advance you far in a best ball tournament because he finishes as a top 3 or 4 running back, or he could finish outside the top 15 or 20 and really sink your team for taking him. Right now he's currently going in the 2nd round of Best Ball, but I would take him as early as, I would take him as early as 1st or 2nd overall if you're trying to get creative and come up with some unique combinations. So that's my top 5 Best Ball running backs. And switching over to tight ends, I will cover your complete guide, so listen up here if you're wondering what to do with tight end this year. First and foremost, Travis Kelce. He's been extremely consistent and elite. It's like having a wide receiver 1 in your tight end spot, no matter what type of format you're playing. I would take him as early as 2nd or 3rd overall in any format besides a startup dynasty. So if we're just talking redraft, PPR, Travis Kelce, I would start considering him after Jefferson. And, a lot of you would probably want to take Chase or McCaffrey over him, I don't blame you, but he's a super safe, consistent player. There's tons of depth at receiver. The running backs you can get later than usual this year, and there's tons of depth at quarterback as well. Lock up that positional advantage of Travis Kelce. And if you don't decide to go him, I think you should wait until Andrews, Hockenson, and probably Kittle go, and I would start to consider Kyle Pitts. I do think without Mariota handicapping him, he will be better this year with Desmond Ridder throwing to him. I don't think Desmond Ridder is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but I think he will be serviceable. And I think with Bijan and London and Pitts all on the field, I think Pitts is going to get a lot of great looks, a lot of one-on-ones. It's really what he can capitalize and dominate in. I do see him finishing inside the top 5 this year at tight end with as much upside as anyone besides Kelce, Andrews, or Hockenson. If you're going to wait past Kyle Pitts, I would let Dallas Goedert pass, even though he's playing on a good offense. He's got 2 other guys getting way more targets than him. Ultimately, I'd probably wait for Cole Kmet. I think having another year with Justin Fields is we saw what they could do last year. He had back-to-back 20-plus point weeks, multiple touchdowns back-to-back weeks, so he has a high ceiling. I think Justin Fields is going to look for Kmet in the red zone, even with the addition of DJ Moore, who should lead the team in targets. I think Kmet should be in line for 90 to 100 targets, get about 70 catches, maybe 800 or 900 yards would be a great outcome with 6 to 8 touchdowns, and you're looking at a tight end 6, maybe even 4 or 5 overall. So if you're waiting on tight end, grab Cole Kmet. So Kelce, Pitts, Kmet. Depending on where you're comfortable taking a tight end, those are the guys to target this year. Here's Joshua. He's going to cover your top 5 redraft running backs. And then Jacob will do Dynasty, and he will talk about some poker hands.
All right, for my section, I'm going to be doing the top 5 running backs I have ranked in redraft leagues. Number 1, no surprise, is Christian McCaffrey. After 4 injury-riddled years, he's kind of showed us and reminded us why he's been the top-ranked running back. I know it's Jonathan Taylor last year in most drafts, but McCaffrey is right there. And in that 49ers offense, there's no reason why, if he stays healthy, he shouldn't be an MVP, league-winning type of running back. Number 2, Austin Eckler. He, in my opinion, is kind of a Christian McCaffrey light, except for the fact that he doesn't have all the injury concerns. Running back number 3 is where I start to veer a little bit from normal. I have Nick Chubb. That offense is going to have a lot of scoring opportunities, and I think that he should be going in the back half of first round. Number 4, Mr. Robinson. The Falcons love to run the ball. I think that he should put up a comparable season to Zeke's first year. And number 5, Josh Jacobs. He showed last year what he could do with that new offense that they're running and the Raiders. And I think he should regress a little bit, but he still should be in the top 5. And to tease, what I talked about, Jonathan Taylor, I have him actually as running back number 8. Now, for my kind of view on drafting tight ends, I'm trying to get as much TJ Hockenson as I can. I think, he has a really high floor. He reminds me a lot of Greg Olsen after he got traded from the Bears and he kind of exploded and became Mr. Consistency. And I think that's what's going to be with Hockenson this year. I think that he just turned 26 this year. He was the 8th overall pick just a couple of seasons ago. Kelce has been a little bit on the decline, and as I teased in the video talking about Kirk Cousins, he was the number 2 overall tight end after he was traded. So I really like TJ Hockenson, especially in some of the drafts he's been slipping to the 5th round. I'm just scooping it all up right there as much as I can. The player, if I miss out on some of my targets, I'm just getting as a late round, is Mr. Schultz down there in Houston. He's going to be their top target, so I think just on volume alone, he'll justify being on your team. And I think at the end of the year, he's going to end up being tight end 10 range, which is good enough because tight end's always a weak position. So those are the players for running back and tight end for my strategy in redraft leagues.
What's up, guys? My name is Jacob Listowski, and today I'm going to be discussing the top 5 running backs for Dynasty Startup. The number one running back on my list is Bijan Robinson. This is a guy that you're going to want to target early in your Dynasty startup drafts. This guy is going to be the cornerstone of your team. He's going to give you a decade's worth of production. He averaged 6.3 yards per carry in college and had a ton of touchdowns. The Falcons are a team that's going to want to get the running back involved. They're going to want to run 35 plus times a game. Sure, they have Tyler Algier. He'll take a few carries here and there, but this guy's going to get the lion's share of the work. He was a very early first-round pick, and I think he has running back one ceiling. The number two guy on my list, I got Christian McCaffrey. This guy is just an absolute beast. He has running back one potential this year, and I think that's who probably will finish running back one. He's only 27 years old, so he's got, probably 2 or 3 more years of production for your team. If you can get this guy early, he's going to be a candidate to catch 80 to 100 balls this year in a great San Francisco offense that's going to want to get him involved. I think this is a guy that can win you your league this year, so if you're drafting as high as number 4 overall, I would look to pick CMC. The number 3 guy on my list is someone who I'm really excited about this season is Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions. This guy was an absolute home run hitter in college where he averaged 5.6 yards per carry, and he demonstrated the ability to catch a lot of passes. That's really good going into a Lions offense where Jared Goff likes to throw the ball to running backs, with Todd Gurley twice having 2 seasons with over 80 catches with Jared Goff as his QB. So the Lions are going to want to get this guy involved. They drafted him very early. They're not going to be stashing him away for later use. They're going to get him involved early and often in their offense. Look for him to catch a lot of passes this season. And he's definitely someone you're going to want to be targeting early in your Dynasty leagues. He might cede a little bit of work to David Montgomery at the goal line, but overall, I think this guy is a guy you can rely on for a long time with your Dynasty teams. The number 4 guy on my list is Saquon Barkley. He's only 26 years old, so he's still got another 3, maybe 4 years of production to give you. So it's definitely a guy you want to be targeting. He has running back one upside this season. And I think that he's going to be looking to have a monster year and a contract year and looking to prove what he's worth. So this is definitely someone to be targeting at the end of the first round or the second round in your Dynasty leagues. At number 5, I have Jonathan Taylor. This guy is somehow still only 24 years old. In 2 out of his 3 seasons in the league, he's finished top 5 as running back overall in fantasy with a running back 1 finish as well. So he has a high ceiling. He's not necessarily in the best situation with Anthony Richardson coming in. He could cede some of those goal line touchdowns to Anthony Richardson. But overall, I think this guy, especially if he can change scenery to a different team, is going to be a production machine over the next 5 years for your fantasy team. Look to pick him up first round, second round.
Welcome to a poker session. This week, we'll be playing 1-2 at WinStar. We're going to change it up. Rather than just talking about your normal hands, because everyone can do a simple replay, we're going to get a little bit more into theory, thoughts of poker like Brad Owen does, and maybe help you make the right plays at the table. So I'm playing at a very tight table with mainly old man coffee types and rocks. So I know I need to play a little wider with my starting hands because of this and float more on the turn, so that way I can try to have cards that improve me, because I'm going to have to draw and make hands to really cash in on this sort of table. For the first hand, I'm in middle position. It limps to me. I look down at 10 of spades, 6 of spades, and I limp. Tight older player on the cutoff makes it 7. The button, big blind, myself, and hijack call. Go to a flop. Flop comes 7, 2, 3. Rainbow. It checks and flow to me. I check. Now the initial raiser makes it 15, and it folds around to me. I call with an over plus a backdoor flush and straight draws, because I know I have to get a little lucky to get money from this type of player. I saw them lay down 2 pair. They're just very tight. The turn comes probably the best card I could hope for, the 8 of spades. So whenever I make that, I again check to the player on the cutoff, and this time they make it 20. I flat again, knowing that, it's hard to blow them off, and I want to see if I can, hit one of my outs. The river comes to 5 of spades, and I make my flush. So now I lead for $51, and this player goes into the tank for a minute or 2. And like I said, I saw them flat call on the river with 2 pair, with trips, with a flush. The only hand they raised the entire night was a boat, and they min raised it. So after thinking for a few minutes, they put in the call, and I show her my flush, and she flashes that she had the 7 and 8 of hearts for top 2 pair. Next hand, we're going to discuss a little bit more about the villain, because again, we're going to get into theory. So this player sits down, they're 2 to my left, and they immediately had a pattern where I think they're trying to become kind of the table captain. So I think they noticed, because I saw them watching, that I was kind of aggressive. So they had a pattern where whenever I'd raise pre-flop, they would flat. Then on the flop, they would flat. And then on the turn, they would shove all in. And I let both hands go because they're kind of vulnerable. And after I noticed this, I quickly changed up kind of my style. That's really important. I think people need to keep in mind how someone's playing them, so that way you can change and make adjustments. So what I started doing was checking to him. I still raised pre-flop and he would flat, but then I'd check to him and he couldn't kind of spring that trap on me, and I was trying to keep the pots from getting too bloated. Well, after about 3 orbits, the seat immediately to my right comes available and he moves over there. So I think it's just really interesting that he wanted to move to being directly to my right. So I was kind of curious what his thought was as far as how he's going to play me. So 2 hands after that move, we get into this hand. The under the gun opens to 7. Under gun plus 2 now makes it 20. The villain who's in middle position calls. I look down at pocket aces. I make it $68 to go. Folds to the under gun. They call, under gun plus 2 and villain call. The flop comes 7 of spades, 5 of diamonds, 5 of spades. Checks to me. I figure it's a pretty good flop for my hand, even though when you're playing 1-2, you literally need to be prepared to see any 2 cards. But I go ahead and c-bet to $77, folds to the villain, who now hatches his plan, which is he immediately shoves all in. I'm putting him on the spade draw. I don't even think about it, and I call. I flip over my aces, which I always do. I recommend this so that way your cards speak for themselves in case you miss something. And also because most of the time I know I'm ahead and I'm not trying to slow roll people, even though that's kind of become fashionable lately. The turn comes, the Jack of Hearts, the river comes, the Queen of Hearts. I feel good. I know that, I faded the spades, nothing really gets there. And as he's mucking, he flashes me and says, "Here for your vlog," because he knows I'm taking notes. And he shows 6 of clubs and 8 of diamonds for an open-ended straight draw. Not really what I figured. I was kind of shocked that he's getting into the pot with that. Doesn't really matter though. I scoop and we have a good night. Well, that'll do it for Volume 2. Thank you everyone for watching. We hope that you liked it. Next week, we're going to discuss a Dynasty startup draft that we did. It was $200 buy-in. We're going to talk our strategies, kind of the way we had to pivot. We'll also do more poker theory, and we'll probably get into discussing our favorite bourbons or whiskeys that we like for old fashions. So I hope you liked it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we look forward to more views from you guys. Thank you.